Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Fernanda Thimoteo. I'm a PhD candidate at Biobase Euro Pilot Blend and about techno-economic analysis, or for short, TEA. So this is a method used for evaluating the technical feasibility and the economic viability of a technology, a process, or a project. And this is important for many different reasons and can be used for different outcomes. So this allows you to assess the cost, the performance, and the profitability of your process or your new technology, and helps you then identify bottlenecks in your process to set research targets where you should improve, and to also evaluate the impact of changes or uncertainties in your project in technical aspects or market aspects, such as the product price or different raw material prices. And this can also be a basis for an environmental assessment. The outputs that you generate from a TEA can support your environmental assessment in a later step. And overall, the TEA will support decision making to better assess the risks related to your project or your technology, and to make an informed decision on investment and cost-wise. So just a general workflow overview of how a TEA is performed. We initiate with a process design where we define all the unit operations, all the equipment that is necessary for each step of your process, which then will lead us to a process modeling, where we do a process simulation using a commercial process simulator software, such as SuperPro Designer. And there we can include all the unit operations and the streams in between them. And this generates then the mass and energy balances of your whole plant in industrial scale, which will then allow us to calculate or estimate the capital costs of each piece of equipment and then your overall plant, and all the operational costs related to the raw materials, the utilities, consumables, and labor that is needed to operate this process. This will then lead us to the financial analysis, where we have a cash flow of all the costs and revenues throughout project years that allow us to calculate financial metrics such as the internal rate of return or the payback period, for instance. And having these models, this allows us to perform sensitivity or uncertainty analysis, where we can vary different parameters and have a range of what will be your final product cost, for instance, or your internal rate of return if these parameters change. And these can be technical parameters, such as a yield or conversion in a certain step, or market parameters such as the feedstock price, for instance. So this gives you a very good idea of the robustness or the sensitivity of your economic performance regarding different parameters. So Biobase has worked in different projects involving TEA work. And here I'm bringing two examples of scientific publications in which Biobase was involved. One of them for producing single-cell protein from industrial off-gas, and another one for producing jet fuel, where one of the pathways was also involving fermentation. And I'm going to focus a bit more on the first one, just to give you a little bit of an example of how this can help us develop, further develop research in a certain area with TEA. So in this publication, we were talking about valorizing industrial off-gas through a dual-stage fermentation or a coupled fermentation via acetate, where in the first step, we convert the gas to acetate, and then in the second fermentation stage, we convert acetate to microbial protein. And the overall simulation of this process and the TEA helped us, for instance, in setting the research targets of acetate productivity and concentration that we need to reach in order to achieve a competing production cost for our microbial protein. So if, for instance, you say you need to get the price down to 2.5 euros per kilogram, you know which acetate productivity and concentration you need to target for that. Another example of what you can get from the TEA in the same example is the effect of production scale. So for sure, when you're increasing production scale, you increase capital investment. Here are two scenarios. So in the lines here, you see the investment increases, but your unit production cost, or the cost for each kilogram of protein that you produce, decreases as your production scale increases. So, and then you can find what is the optimal production scale that you should target based on market constraints as well, and your process. So these are two examples, and in Biobase, we can support you throughout these steps. So basically put into very defined steps. We first have the process definition, then we analyze the general mass and energy balances based on your input. We do an initial feasibility and optimization, and then we move forward to the process simulation, where we then will have the final mass and energy balances all simulated, which leads us to the cost estimation of both CapEx and OpEx, the economic analysis, and then we can perform a benchmarking with, for instance, a technology that is already commercial, that is already available. How does your product, your technology compare in relation to this benchmark? And then finally, a little bit more outside the scope of the TEA and transitioning into the engineering services we can already provide. This is linked then to the scale-up support that we can provide, the feasibility studies and technical due diligence. So Janko will talk a little bit more about those now. Thank you.